Hi everyone, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today's video is going to be my very small July Part 2 reading rewind. And I read 3 books kind of in the second half of July, which is nuts. I had read a whole bunch of books at the beginning and I already did the first part video, which I'll link for you guys in case you didn't see it. But I had all these grand plans and I was doing Reading Rush and I was back in California on vacation and I was just gonna read all these books, and I wound up maybe getting through 50% of one book after I landed in California, which is crazy. But anyone who lives out there, who has been there, will understand why, because basically we were living our best lives outside, just doing tons of fabulous things, and I just wasn't really reading. But I did read 3 books for Reading Rush. I enjoyed them all, and obviously I want to talk to you guys about them today. So let's just get into it. The first book I read is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. And this is definitely more novella than book. It's 90 pages. And it is kind of the last thing that she wrote. And I don't even want to say too much about it because it's so short. You just kind of need to read it and go into it and know that you're getting pure Gillian Flynn in style, in language, in characters, in all of it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, plowed through it for the sake of Reading Rush. This is the one that I was going to read all in one place. I read it in bed. It's gonna sound pathetic, but it took me 2 sittings to read it, but I started it at night and I was pooped, and then I finished it the next morning. So there you have it. But in my opinion, you cannot go wrong with Gillian Flynn. I still have to read Dark Places. It is on my Thriller-a-thon list. It was on my Reading Rush list. I just didn't get to it. So I just love her as a writer. And if you haven't picked this one up, it's easy breezy. It's great for readathons. And you will get all the beautiful things about Gillian Flynn. The only thing about it that I didn't love is that it was so dang short. I just wanted more. So please write another book, because I just really want to read another book by you. But yeah, loved it. Great. 5 stars, all in. The next book I listened to on audiobook, and it was Bird Box by Josh Malerman. And for Reading Rush, there was a challenge for I think I don't know if it was supernatural elements or creatures or something or another. And I knew the crux of Bird Box, but I didn't know what the thing was they were all in fear of. So now that I've read the book, I'm still gonna count this. Not that it really matters at this stage of the game, because it's a month after Reading Rush ended. But so this is a book about a woman named Mallory, and basically I didn't know too much about this going in, other than there is something out in the universe that basically if you see it, it was either you're gonna die, or you're gonna kill people, or you're gonna go crazy, or nothing good is gonna come of it. So sort of in this very messed up version of the world today, something has been invading the world, and people have basically been living holed up in their houses, windows covered, don't go outside. Communication has been cut off, phone lines don't work anymore. There's this very kind of remote channel where some people can get in touch with each other and kind of gather together in safe houses. So this is about this woman Mallory and her 2 children. And I wasn't sure sort of how this was all gonna play out, but at the core of it, she is basically blindfolded in a boat with her 2 kids, blindfolded, trying to get down a river to safety from the house that they're in. And it winds up going backwards in time, so you get sort of just as this thing is happening in the world. So people were living these very normal lives, and then this comes upon them. And then you see sort of the story of how she gets to the point where she's at the river, but it's told sort of backwards and forwards, dueling timelines. There's a lot of secondary characters in this. There's a lot going on. I would say I liked it. I get why people love it. I didn't love it, and I think it was not totally my genre in some ways, but I give it huge points for creativity. I give it huge points for keeping me guessing about what was going to happen. The audiobook was really good, although I will say there's so many characters and this is not giving anything away, but there's like a portion where Mallory is like with, I want to say like 5 or 6 other people, and I did have a hard time distinguishing some of the characters. And I don't know if it's because I was listening to it and it was one voice telling the story, and I've been spoiled lately with a lot of the audiobooks I've listened to where there's been a fully fleshed out cast, which has made it so much easier when there's a lot of people to follow along. So I did have to kind of like rewind at a few parts, or sort of like got a little bit lost about who a few people were. I didn't feel the characters were as distinctive to me, sort of Mallory and her sister aside. And it could have been because I was listening to the audiobook, and if I was reading the book, I think I might have had a clearer understanding of who was who, but like a few things sort of got lost for me a few times, so I did have to go backwards. But it's definitely messed up. I enjoyed it. It was a good listen. I did just see that there is going to be a sequel to it, which comes out, I want to say like in November. I'll note down below because I just had seen that on Goodreads. So I'd be curious where the book is going to go. It fully, it closes up in a way that you're not sort of left hanging, which I appreciate, but I could see how the story could continue. I'm being vague on purpose because I don't want to give anything away. So I would say if you have a curiosity about it, absolutely read it, listen to it. I'm glad I did. I've heard about it from Krista at Books and Jams and April from Getting Hooga with It, and it's definitely one that was on my list that I was curious about. So I did enjoy it. I don't want to make it sound like I didn't. It wasn't a 5-star read for me, but I did find it creepy. I did find it very intriguing. I am for sure going to check out the Netflix movie with Sandra Bullock and Sarah Paulson. I don't know how that holds up. I haven't heard much about it, and I did that intentionally because I knew that this was one of those books where if you had like an inkling of what was going on, it could spoil it all for you. So I'm also happy that I finally understand what the Bird Box is, because that was one of my biggest questions of like, what is this all about? So listen to it. Yeah, I would recommend it if you're curious about it. Absolutely. It was a good one. So of course I saved my best for last, and I actually listened to this before Bird Box, and maybe that's why I felt a little, I don't want to say let down by Bird Box, but when the bar is so dang high, it is hard to meet it, never mind exceed it. And I listened to and read along Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and no surprise, you guys, I loved this book. Loved it. Like I can't even say enough good things about it. I loved the audiobook. I totally understand why everybody out there says like, listen to the audio, listen to the audio. It is a full cast. You have all these incredible people in it. Jennifer Beals is Daisy Jones. Judy Greer is in it. Benjamin Bratt is in it. The voices are great. All of it. I mean, they just do such an incredible job of telling this story through their voices. And I compulsively was like listening to it, reading along, having to stop the audio so I could underline, and I don't even know if you can see how many pages I dog-eared in this. I, as you guys know, am a huge fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. I just discovered her in April. I literally have been living under the giant rock of not knowing who she was. And I am secretly happy about it because I have read a book of hers a month. I am just devouring all of them. But I love her writing and her words and her language and her phrases. And there's so many lines in this book that just like ripped at my heart in beautiful ways and tragic ways, in like sadness and happiness, and just feeling the pain of the characters and feeling the joy of the characters. And she just, I just think she killed it. And I know a lot of people don't connect with this book when they're just reading it. I am going to go back and just read it. I actually am super tempted to just buy the audio of it also, because I feel like I could listen to it over and over again and continue to get stuff out of it, because it was that mind-blowing to me. And it's been probably a month since I listened to it at the time I'm filming this, and I'm still thinking about it obsessively. So here we go. If you don't know anything about this book, this is a story about a band, the Six, and this singer Daisy Jones, who joins them initially for a duet, and then they get together to make an album back in the 70s. And it is in Hollywood. It's sort of in the height of that day, and Taylor Jenkins Reid has said, you know, a lot of this is sort of not based on, but inspired by Fleetwood Mac, and I'm gonna get to all that in half a minute. So it is very much that time of, you know, rock and roll, and sort of the sex and drugs and rock and roll, and the drinking and the excess and the drama, and there's, you know, there's groupies, and there's cheating, and there's life on the road, and there's just sort of all of these things, which I know don't sit well with everyone, and I'm not saying I'm a fan of all of these things, but I understand it, and I think it's super reflective of the time. She did a ton of research. This feels as authentic as Evelyn Hugo feels to me as a Hollywood actress. I cannot wait to see what they do with this when it comes to the screen, as far as the songs. All the lyrics to the songs are in here. I am desperate to hear them. It's just like everybody else. Like, I just want to go out and buy this album, and it doesn't exist yet. But I just think it was so beautifully done, and it is told. So you have, they basically were out on tour, and one night broke up. Like, no explanation, last show, just sort of everybody walked off the stage, and that was the end of Daisy Jones, and it was the end of the Six. And this is told in present day. They are all being interviewed by like a Rolling Stone-ish type of kind of story, and it's everyone in the band and everyone who was connected to them, husbands, wives, you know, managers, photographers, friends, all of it. And you get this 360 version of what happened back then, and you get, you know, kind of everyone's side of the story, and then somewhere in lies the truth. And I just love everybody's perspective on things. I just love it. I just think it was so incredibly well done, and it's just beautiful. It's just typical Taylor Jenkins Reid beauty. And the Fleetwood Mac connection. So anyone who, you know, knows anything about Fleetwood Mac knows the drama that was in that band with Christine McVie and John McVie, who got married and then got divorced, and then Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, who joined the band, and they broke up, and everybody was writing songs about each other and breaking up with each other, and kind of Mick Fleetwood had his own stuff going on in the background with his wife, who, this should be no like surprise to you guys. When I like obsess and fixate on something, I go pretty deep down a rabbit hole. So I was just watching this documentary on Fleetwood Mac on Amazon Prime, and his wife cheated on him with his best friend, but he was saying now, like, he was okay with it, because if she was going to leave him for someone, he would rather it would be for someone he knew was a good guy, even though his best friend slept with his wife. But like, they're still friends till this day. So like, I'm just fascinated by all of it, and like, their music is amazing, and they got together and broke up and came back and all this. So in like the weird twist of fate, and this is gonna go so far off a Daisy Jones tangent, but I was just in California for a few weeks. I had some time off before my new job starts, and stayed with my sister, and we were in Sausalito, and I didn't realize this, and my sister and I had gone to see a band play, and we were just talking about live music, and I was saying how I haven't seen live music in forever. And she was saying how, like, you know, she goes a lot, and she was like, oh, there's this great cover band at this restaurant we had gone to that has a music hall, and she's like, they're a Fleetwood Mac cover band called Fleetwood Mac, and they are endorsed by Mick Fleetwood. So I will link their website down below so you can see it all. And she was kind of like, and I was like, oh my God, like, that's amazing. I would love to see them. And we go online, and sure enough, they were playing the last weekend that I was there. So we went, and I felt like I was at a Fleetwood Mac concert. So not only do they sound incredible, but the woman, and I will say this, like, who plays Stevie Nicks, because when they are on stage, they are in character. She has a costume designer who has recreated some of Stevie Nicks' looks. She changes throughout, the hat, the flowing outfits, all of it. She, like, her mannerisms, everything. Never mind that her voice sounds like her. And I tried to shoot a little bit of video. If it, I haven't looked at it yet. If it looks even remotely usable, I'll insert it here so you guys can hear it. But they looked like them. I felt like I was at a Fleetwood Mac concert. And what I also didn't realize is that Fleetwood Mac recorded Rumors in Sausalito. And I was like 5 minutes from where that recording studio is, which I think is now like a yoga studio, but they still have preserved part of the recording studio. So I literally was like, I read this book right before I went to California, and was just like pushed into this complete alternate universe of Fleetwood Mac and their entire like existence, it felt like. So like where they filmed that pivotal or where they recorded that pivotal album, and hearing the live show, completely obsessed, down a rabbit hole. I already had Fleetwood Mac music before. I even heard about Daisy Jones. I downloaded a couple more songs. I've been listening to it obsessively, so now you know more than you ever wanted to know. But long story short, you guys, too late. Yes, this book is so good. I just am so blown away by Taylor Jenkins Reid's ability to experiment with her writing. So this is told all in interview format, which again, I think is why some people didn't connect with the physical book of it all, because it's literally told, I don't know if you can see, like with the transcript of the interviews. But now that I've listened to it, I feel like that has given it a different element and a different dimension. So I think it's easier to go back and read it at this point. But I just think like more power to her for creating what feels like these completely authentic bands and movie stars with Evelyn Hugo, and just her characters in general just feel so authentic to me. So I cannot wait to see what she comes up with next, but 100% recommend this, hands down. Listen to it if you can. It is worth the wait. I was on a waiting list for months at the library for it, and I can't imagine having done it any other way, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I may not have read a lot of books at the end of July, but so help me. This is definitely top of my list for 2019, and it's a hard one to beat for me. Okay, so 3 books, and I feel like I've been talking for 20 minutes, but you know me, I can't stop talking. I just love to talk about stuff. So not a complete successful reading rush for me in that I did 3 books, but you do what you do. Life happens. It was all for a good reason. I had an absolute blast while I was in California. So yes, that is the end of my July reading. All good things, all in. It was a great month with all the books combined. So there you have it. This is going up super, super late. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books and what you thought of them. I am deep into another book as I film this, hopefully. I know August is going to be a much smaller month when it comes to total books read, just because by the middle of the month I'd only finished 1 book. But again, you know, there's ebbs and flows to reading as there are to life. So I will keep you guys posted on what I read in August when the time comes. Thank you for hanging out with me today. For anyone who's new here, thanks for watching. I apologize that I was a little kind of all over the place and went off on a massive tangent, but yeah, sometimes that's just how it rolls here. So if you're interested, for sure subscribe, because there'll be more content coming soon, and I will see you guys in that next video. Thanks everybody. Bye.